Dr. Mouth. Welcome to another edition of Slip Through the Cracks. I gotta tell you, kind of bummed. You know, when you're a music junkie like myself, or many of you out there that watch these videos, there are certain performers that you always want to see live. You listen to their records, you read about their lives, you hear them talk in interviews, fascinated by who they are, by either their expert musicianship or some sort of charismatic element that draws you to them. Perhaps similar philosophies when it comes to life, love, and religion. I have a lot of those. I have tons of them. But you know what? I've gotten to see most of them. I saw James Brown. I saw James Brown many times. One of my true musical idols. I saw him many times. I saw Warren Zevon. I mean, it was only once, and it was great. And someone else I really, really respected, Warren Zevon. There's so many. Bands I thought I'd never see. Hawkwind, I've seen several times. Motorhead, my favorite band, many, many times. Neil Young, 5 or 6, 7 times, 8 times, 9 times. Link Wray, Dick Dale, you know, guys that are legendary. Rocky Erickson, bands like Goblin, Nectar, Wishbone Ash, The Strawbs, you know, bands that you just, those bands are never even going to ever. Blue Cheer, I saw Blue Cheer, for God's sake. I've seen pretty well everyone that I admire musically. There's only 2 that I can really think of that I never got to see. And one of them was Frank Zappa. Never got to see Frank Zappa. He died so young, 1993. His last tour that he did was in 88. I was actually living in St. Catharines at the time and didn't find out about the concert in Buffalo until after it had happened. Because he didn't even tour Canada in 1988 because he felt the material was so much rooted in what was going on in the U.S. politically that he didn't even tour it in Canada. So I never got to see Frank Zappa. And there was one other one, and it was someone, myself and a friend of mine, we'd always kind of we've talked about it for years. We need to see this guy. We need to see this guy. We're never going to, you know, he's not going to be around forever. He's getting up there. We need to see this guy. Well, I think you probably know where this is going. Sadly enough, we did not get to see him because he did pass away just recently, October 24th. The one and only, and I can say that easily. You know, lots of times you can say legendary this or one of a kind that or one and only. This man was one and only. I'm talking about Tony Joe White. Great singer, great songwriter, guitar player, ultimately charismatic individual, all-around talented performer. Everything you want in a performer. You know, not as well known as I would have liked him to be, obviously. He was really talented. But he was, unfortunately, one of those guys. Well, it works. It's got a good side and bad side. He was one of those guys that wrote songs that when they were recorded by other people, they were huge hits. He wrote Rainy Night in Georgia. And that tune was huge for Brooke Benton. Top 5 hit. And tons of other acts recorded it and were successful with it as well. He also wrote Polk Salad Annie, which was his first big hit in 1968, I believe it was. It made it into the top 10. But then Elvis Presley recorded it. And so, of course, the royalties you would get from an Elvis Presley recording of your song, think about that. And that's in the 70s. Elvis is still very popular at that point. So a lot of people know him for that and the fact that he was someone, they consider him one of those guys that was great, but he wrote songs for other people. They don't really think about him as a performer. And man, you are missing the boat if you don't think about Tony Joe White that way. This guy was so incredibly talented. You know, born in the swamps, born in Louisiana, Oak Grove, Louisiana. Youngest of 7 children, you know, cotton farm. Very talented from a very young age, playing the harmonica, playing the guitar, great singer. And, you know, got into music very quickly, had several bands of his own in the 60s with names like Tony and the Mojos, before he kind of struck out on his own and put his first album out in 1968. This is it right here. It's called Black and White. It was on the Monument label. As you can see by the big red sticker, glaring red sticker, it did have Polk Salad Annie on it. And this was the beginning of where we get to see Tony Joe White, a master of blues, soul, funk as well. And he has that, what they used to call like swampy music, the way they would describe kind of like CCR, that definitive kind of in the bayou, the Meters, bands like that, right? That kind of down south Louisiana kind of feel, that unique kind of funky groove. Tony Joe White had it in spades. So his career was off and running in 1968. And those incidents I'd mentioned, those other big hits for other people, were all in the early 70s. So very early on in Tony Joe White's career, he was set. This is the good side. I talked about the bad side. You only recognize as someone that wrote songs for someone else and not your own talent. But the good side is he was set for life. Those songs were played so much and sold so many records that he wouldn't have to worry about what type of music or what he did for the rest of his career. And so that's basically what he did, and he always stuck to what he did. I mean, there was a slight deviation at one point. He did a couple of records in the early 80s where his record company at the time really kind of tried to push him in another direction. Just to warn you, the one is called Dangerous and the one is called Eyes. Don't bother with either one of them. They are so non-Tony Joe White-like, it's not funny. Even more non-Tony Joe White-like than, what's that Captain Beefheart record? Unconditionally Guaranteed. As much as that record wasn't like Beefheart, these records that Tony Joe White was forced to put out are even more not like him, if that makes any sense at all to any of you out there. Other than that, he's pretty well done whatever he wanted his entire career and stuck to that blues, swampy, soul, funky thing. One of the people that covered his songs and had big hits with it was Tina Turner. They met in 1989. She did that album called Foreign Affair, and he wrote 4 of the songs on that record. And the one, Steamy Windows, was a big hit. And when in a lot of the obituaries that were written for Tony Joe White, they would talk about this story of when Tina Turner met Tony Joe White, and that he came into the room and she just started laughing like crazy when she saw him. She just started laughing hysterically, and Tony Joe White's like, "What's going on, man? Is my fly down? Have I got ketchup on my face, or what's going on?" And apparently, he goes up to her and introduces himself, and she just goes, "After all these years, I can't believe it. I thought you were a black man." So he definitely had that kind of soul, funky. I can see how she would make that mistake and feel that he sounded, because he really did have an amazing voice and sound in that capability. And he produced some really, really fine records. His first 3 records were for a label called Monument. I showed you the first one, Black and White, and I'll show you the other 2 out of this really cool box set that Rhino did a few years ago. I think it was 2009, maybe earlier. It's his first 3 records for Monument. That was the first label. So this one, Black and White, which I showed you. This was the second one, called Continued. And then this was the third one, simply called Tony Joe. And then also the box set came with this great collection of rarities. Half of it is stuff that was recorded around the same time as those 3 records. The second half of it is a concert he did in England on the Isle of Wight back in like 1970, 71. So pretty cool package. So those 3 albums for Monument came first. Then he was signed to Warner Brothers. And this is one of his albums from Warner Brothers, simply called Tony Joe White. And I got to show you the inside cover here too. Can I hold this up so you can see it? Yeah. Check that out. Tony Joe White. Okay, he also did this one for Warner Brothers as well. Homemade ice cream. My copy's a little beat up. But another one with a great centerfold in the middle there. Tony Joe White beating Burt Reynolds to it right there. This was another one of the ones he did for Warner Brothers. It's called The Train I'm On. Love that cover on that one. This one, unfortunately, did not have a crazy gatefold picture of Tony Joe White. Here's another one, too, that he also did around that same period. This is for a movie slash musical about the life of Othello, based on the Shakespeare play, and turned into like a modern rock musical. It's called Catch My Soul. Richie Havens was on this record. Delaney and Bonnie were on it. It's really, really cool record. I've never actually seen the movie, but apparently it has just been released on Blu-ray within the last couple of years. And if you get it, it has, in the extra features, it actually has an interview with Tony Joe White, which I thought was pretty cool. So you might want to check that out. But I've never seen the movie myself. But you know what? The soundtrack is great. Between Richie Havens and Tony Joe White, like, it's really great. They do the bulk of the singing. And this other guy, too. Lance, what's his name? Lance Legault also is the other one on this. So really unique record. I love it. And then in a lot of the 80s, and then, you know, I mentioned he had those two kind of disastrous records where the record company tried to push him in a different direction. And after that, that was kind of it for records and stuff. There was kind of a bit of a lull. And then after he did the stuff I talked about with Tina Turner, that was in 1989, he had a bit of a resurgence, and he started to do records again in the 90s and just kept going right up until he passed away. So let's go through some of those. This is One Hot July. This one was really quite good. This Crack the Window Open. The opening tune is really cool. And Gumbo John, one of Tony Joe White's many character kind of songs, is on this one as well. There was this one as well called Lake Placid Blues. See, a lot of these came out in CD time. I don't even know if vinyl copies of them exist. This one's called Snakey, of course, from the snakeskin in the background there. This one is called The Beginning, one that Tony Joe White claimed was in him from the very beginning. So that was kind of cool. This one is called The Heroines, and it's basically him doing duets with people like Lucinda Williams and Emmylou Harris, a host of other female performers. That was a very neat concept for him. This one I really like from 2010. It's called The Shine, and we're going to hear a tune from that one as we make our way through this today. And then in about 2013? Yeah, 2013, he signed a deal with Yep Rock, and this was the first one that they put out. It's called Hoodoo. And there is, I mean, he hasn't changed his look much through the years, right? Still wearing t-shirt and jeans. Got his handy guitar right there. And of course, old school amp, old school Fender. And then he did another one for Yep Rock after that one. And then his final one came out a month before he passed away. It's called Bad Mouthin'. So it's out there. As I record this, it's out there right now, available for you to check out. In fact, I myself have not yet had a chance to check it out. But I love the concept. Bad Mouthin', his last record. And through his career, he wrote most of his material for himself as well. He'd do the odd cover, but not very often. His new record, it's half originals by him and half covers of old blues tunes that he really liked by guys like John Lee Hooker, who he did Boom Boom way back in the 70s, and guys like Charlie Patton and stuff like that. So that's what his last record was like, Bad Mouthin'. So what I wanted to do, because this guy had such a great career and was prolific right to the end, and it's really unfortunate, I never got to see him, and he wasn't even ill or anything. He had just done a concert in New York City at the end of September, right around the time his record was released. I'm guessing that's what it was, a record release probably in New York City. And a friend of mine, and we wanted to see Tony Joe White forever, and he never comes to Canada. And we were like so tempted to go to that show, and we really should have, because within a month he passed away from an unexpected heart attack. His son said he wasn't ill at all, and it was totally unexpected. So Tony Joe White, though, man, living the life, doing what he wanted to do until the very end. And you got to admit, that is pretty cool. So, all right. Woo! I think that's more than enough yapping. Let's get into some of the music of Tony Joe White here. I'm not going to play the obvious ones like Polk Salad Annie or Rainy Night in Georgia, but I'm going to play some. And I'm drawing from a vast pool here, and I've only picked like 5 songs. You could do 25, 55 songs. The guy wrote a ton of great songs. So the first one I want to start with, though, is always one of my favorites right from the beginning. It's on his very first album, and it's, where are we going to go back to this one here? Yeah, we're going to go back to the Black and White here, ladies and gentlemen, and I believe it's the lead-off track, too. Yeah, I love it, and you will, too. It's the story of Willa and Laura Mae Jones.
Willie and Laura Mae Jones were our neighbors a long time back. They live right down the road from us in a shack just like our shack. We worked in the fields together and we learned to count on each other. When you live off the land, you don't have time to think about another man's color. Oh, the cotton was high and the corn was growing fine. But that was another place and another time. They'd sit out on the front porch in the evening when the sun went down. Willie would play and Laura would sing and the children would dance around. And I'd bring over my guitar and we'd play into the night. And every now and then Willie would grin and say, boy, you play alright. And that made me feel so good. Lord, the cotton was high and the corn was growing fine. But that was another place and another time. I remember we'd hitch up the mules when Saturday rolled around. We'd always stop by Willie's house and say, do y'all need anything from town? And he'd say, no, but why don't y'all stop on your way back home? And I'll get Laura Mae to cook up some corn pones, and you know they're good. Oh, the cotton was high and the corn was growing fine. But that was another place and another time.
All right, so there you go. That's only half the story. See, a lot of Tony Joe White songs are stories like that. So you're gonna have to, you have to search out the rest of that song to hear how it ends. So there you go. Willie and Laura Mae Jones. I love it, from Tony Joe White's very first album, Black and White. Now the next one I want to play is, he did a lot of songs. Again, he was from the South, man. He was from Louisiana, and a lot of it was always that struggle between the God and devil, religion, man, civility, uncivility. Praise the Lord on Sunday after you just went crazy on Saturday night drinking and boozing it up. There's always that conflict, right? So he wrote a great song about an element of that, and it's called "The Backwoods Preacher Man," and it was on this album here, Homemade Ice Cream. And it's actually on Catch My Soul too, because they used it in the movie. Although the version on Catch My Soul is pretty crazy. It's way more psychedelic than what you're going to hear here. He put all this phased out guitar on it and more effects and stuff like that. I don't know if that was for the psychedelic musical or what, but regardless, either version, it's a great song. So let's go for it now. We're going to hear the story of The Backwoods Preacher Man by Tony Joe White.
Way down in the country, back in the Arkansas woods, there's a man that was working for Jesus, trying to do some good. He don't have no fancy building, just a big old raggedy tent. And the people who come to see him believe he was heaven sent. Backwoods preacher man, doing the best he can. Backwoods preacher man, trying to give the Lord a hand. When you hear him talk about Jesus, you know they're the best of friends. Just one look and you can tell he will give the devil hell and help you wash away your sins. Sing backwoods preacher man, doing the best he can. Backwoods preacher man, trying to give the Lord a hand. Tell everybody, tremble down into his shoes when you hear that backwoods preacher singing those gospel blues. trying to give the Lord a hand. Backwoods preacher man. Backwoods preacher man.
There, that one I let you hear the whole song. I thought, it's not one of the longer ones. A lot of his songs, because he's telling the story, they're a little bit longer. That one was not too long. So there you go, the whole story there of the Backwoods Preacher Man. And Catch My Soul. If you get a chance to see it, leave some comments here below the video, because I would love to see what people think of that film. I got to hunt it down. I got to see it. The next tune we're going to do here, ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to kind of show off Tony Joe White's sense of humor, because he definitely had a sense of humor, which mixes in great with his music. Songs like Groupie Girl, Old Man Willis, they just make me laugh when I hear them. And one of the ones that definitely makes me laugh, and once again you get a story out of Tony Joe White. It comes off one of his other Warner Brothers albums, this one here, The Train I'm On. And the title is Even Trolls Love Rock and Roll. So I'm not sure what's going through your head, but certainly I had some crazy images when I first thought of this one. So let's do it, ladies and gentlemen. Let's find out that even if trolls can rock and roll, because Tony Joe White, he's going to lay it on the line for us right here.
One time I had this little band back home. Rock and roll band. And we was going to play this job one night, and it wasn't too far away, so we was walking. Well, we came up on this long black stretch of woods. Had an old river running through it, and an old wooden bridge across the river. But just as I was about to step up on the bridge, out stepped the troll. The almighty troll. He said, hey, looks like y'all going to play somewhere. I said, yes, sir. He said, look, like I hate to mess up y'all's job, but I sure could dig here a little music. I said, man, we can't just plug up and play right here on the bridge. He said, why? I said, cause. He said, play. And that's what we did. Well, the wind was howling at the night, and the moon was covered up with clouds. Walking across a bridge on a dirt road, when I heard the troll growl. He said, don't you go walking across my bridge, or I'm gonna make it rough on you. I will give you swamp fever, and you'll be wondering if you're you. You know you got to pay the toll, 'cause even trolls love rock and roll. Ooh, it will keep you up all night, drinking and a carrying on, getting it to the swamp music. Get it on, get it on. Ooh, you know you got to pay my toll, 'cause even trolls love rock and roll.
Ain't I a stinker? I did it again. I let you only hear half of the song. You got to now hunt down that song to find out what happens with the band and the trolls on the bridge. I don't know what's going to happen. Oh, it's going to be crazy, I'm telling you. I wanted to play that one too because one of Tony Joe White's characteristics was his guitar sound. And he used to use the wah-wah pedal a lot as like for tone, not so much for effect, say like Jimi Hendrix or a lot of bands in the 60s did, but more like as part of your tone. Phil Campbell and Fast Eddie Clark, both when they were in Motorhead, kind of used the wah-wah pedal as a tone rather than for outrageous effects, right? And Tony Joe White used to call his wah-wah pedal his whomper stomper. So I wanted you to hear a song where he's doing a little bit of whomp and stomping there. And there you go. Even the trolls love the whomper stomper. Okay, got a couple more here that I want to play for you. As I mentioned, he loved to write songs about characters too. You know, lots of them are about people. Gumbo John, Old Man Willis, Widow Wimberly, Conjure Woman. He loved to write songs about people. There was one called The Migrant, The Gospel Singer, The Sidewalk Hobo. And one of my favorite songs, though, in fact, I guess he wrote so many songs about people and other people and types of people that it was inevitable that he would write one about himself. And he did it. It's on, I believe it's on this. This is another one of his Warner Brothers records here. And I love this tune. I love this. I can totally see everything that happens in the song, he mentions in the song, I can totally see happening. I'm guessing they're all experiences that he had as part of being a traveling musician. The song is called A Day in the Life of the Swamp Fox. And Swamp Fox was kind of the nickname that Tony Joe White was given as he got more popular, and because he had that swampy sound and he was from the South. So this is called A Day in the Life of the Swamp Fox. So on this one, he actually writes about himself. He writes about the experiences on the road, fans coming up to him, promoters dealing with him, the press, the media, everything. It's great. Tony Joe White writes a song about himself. So let's hear about the trials and tribulations in Another Day in the Life of the Swamp Fox.
Step off of the aeroplane and the hawk cuts through my clothes like I was naked. I walk down to the baggage claim and the situation there is what I expected. My bags were left in Memphis and I'm standing there wondering what to do. A cat walks up from the local news and says, "Can I get an interview?" No, 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 no. I said, no, 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 no. No, no, no. Another night in the life of a swamp fox. And we're late, so we rush down to the Coliseum. Promotion man at the front door, and I can tell no matter what I say that it just won't please him. He said that the tickets are selling too slow, and now it's starting to rain. When a cat walks up with a sofa look and said, "Can you spare some change?" No, 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 no. He said, no, 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 no. No, baby. Another night in the life of a swamp fox. And it's looking like we got it made till it gets to the part where it says that the gator's got your granny chomp. The people are feeling the music and the groove is knocking me out. When a cat hollers out from the front row and says, "Can you play Wipeout?" I said, no, baby. No, 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 no. Another night in the life of a swamp fox.
you enjoyed the trials and tribulations of the Swamp Fox there, ladies and gentlemen. I had to fade it out there, but the end of that, you get another good minute or so more of him stomping all over it, man, because he's getting his frustrations out in being a rock and roll performer. But, you know, great guy, great performer, great songwriter, great singer. I got one more song, hopefully, that I can play for you and get you into checking out Tony Joe White on your own, because ultimately that's what Slip Through the Cracks is all about, checking these guys out further on your own. I'm here to just kind of give you a little shove in the right direction. The last tune I'm going to play, it was the lead-off track on his album from 2010, which was called Shine. Very simple picture there of Tony Joe White and his harmonica. And I really like this one. Most of his records are good. Some of the 90s ones, the production, sometimes, I find it doesn't suit him that much. It's like they're trying to make it sound like his backing band is Dire Straits or something, and I don't know if that actually works all the time. But on this one, it's kind of stripped down, and this track I'm going to play is called Season Man, and it's something... any one of us, I think, it's definitely from an older person's perspective, watching as you get older and how things change so much from what you remember when you were younger. It happens to everybody. Nobody gets around it just because you end up being around. If you end up being around for a long time, you see a lot of things change, especially in this day and age when things can change like that so fast. So I'm going to play this one, Season Man, from Tony Joe White, and we're going to listen to the entire song from his album, Shine.
I was moving freely out across the field. My friend was going slower, though his back was made of steel. The wild horses in the mountain do you any way they can. A guitar is much easier, songwriting man. Season man, moving in the rain. Season man, moving with the change. Drummer man, he took his furs and headed on down south, with a taste of the Rio Grande still in his mouth. He moved in with his kinfolks in the Arkansas woods. He was a man who would always do what he said he would. Seasoned man, moving with the change. Season man, moving with the rain. Mountain will chew you up and spit you out, hold you close and let you feel what it's all about. And you can walk the streets, wear your robes and your vacant smile, braid your hair like a doormat, you are a rainbow child. Seasons change, out walking in the rain. Season man, moving with the rains. Season man, moving with the change.
So yeah, there you go. A little bit more the softer side of Tony Joe White, but still that great voice. He has such a great voice, and it has changed as he's aged, but I still love the graveliness it has to it. The strength, even when he's singing softly, it has a real strength to it, a real power. Presence, I guess, is what I'm thinking of. He's got real presence. And just such a great, talented performer. And I'm really sad that I never got to see him perform live. But if I can turn some of you onto Tony Joe White and his great records. I mean, look at this career from like 1968 to 2018. Think about that. It is unbelievable. And he may not have been like a superstar at the top of the heap for all that time. But man, oh man, he wrote some great records, wrote some great songs, put out some great music. And we are all the better for it. I'm going to tell you that. Also, quickly, too, if you want to see some live or hear live Tony Joe White, there is some stuff out there. This is a really great one from the legendary show Austin City Limits. It's been a PBS institution forever. This one goes way back to 1980, but it's a great concert. There's a live version of Even Trolls Love Rock and Roll on here, as well as Willie and Laura Mae Jones, and 300 Pounds of Hungry, which I like that tune as well, and of course Polk Salad Annie. So if you want to catch some Tony Joe White, 1980, that's a really good one. And also, Rhino Handmade put this one out as well. This one goes, it's from the early 70s, and it's got that On the Road Look live. And I think it was an album that was supposed to come out at the time, but never did. It's great. He's touring in the early 70s. There's a live version of Day in the Life of the Swamp Fox on here. And he had a great band. Duck Dunn from Booker T and the MGs was the bass player in his band at this point. So some really great stuff on this one, too, if you want to hear more of Tony Joe White live. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to wrap it up for this time. I want to thank the mighty, the great Kevin McDonald for editing these videos for me. He does such a great job, adds in so many extra treats and little trinkets, and when I mess up, he makes magic out of my mess. So hats off to Kevin McDonald for editing all these for me. Thanks very much, buddy. I super appreciate it. And I'm sure the viewers do too, considering the shambolic mess of video I usually send you. That's it. I'm out of here. You can also check me out. I'm also part of Saturday night's Main Event Radio, which you can be heard every Sunday night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Sunday nights. Hosted by Jason Agnew. I usually join him every other week to talk about the exciting world of pro wrestling. Yes, pro wrestling, man. I'm telling you, it's never boring in the world of pro wrestling, I got to tell you. So you can check that out. It's on tsn.ca. You can stream it live on there. It's from TSN 1150 out of Hamilton, Ontario. But if you tune in Sunday night, go to tsn.ca, check out the radio section. You can listen to it live right there and in living color. All right, I'm also on Instagram. And if you want, the best thing of all of these silly announcements at the end is there's a little button you can press subscribe, and then you'll know anytime you're on YouTube if Dr. Mouse has done a new video or not for you to check out. All right, thanks to everybody that helped make this video possible, and thanks to Tony Joe White for an amazing career of music. And most of all, I thank all of you for watching.